just to interact with all of these SPIT students. Love to be here. So without wasting time, right, let's get started. So I'm just trying to share my screen. Oh, great. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, it is visible.
It's visible, right? I don't know why this is not coming up. Oh, great. So hi, everybody. My name is Vignesh. I am really excited to host this talk on cloud computing today. So just want to start off with a brief introduction on myself. I know Shreya just went over this, but just want to give it out from me. My name is Vignesh. I did my bachelor's in EXTC, proudly from SPIT. I know a lot of people today haven't been to college, are missing out. I mean, all this in this pandemic world, right? And so just want to give a sort of advice. So whenever somebody asks Awas Konacha, you always say EXTC cha. Okay. I did my master's in computer science here in the United States, and I currently work as a cloud engineer at Oracle. So great. So I'm really happy to be here just to, interact with all of you budding engineers. I know there's a lot of possibility in the future, and I just hope some seeds are sown today. So just want to go briefly over some housekeeping items or some rules for the sessions. This session, actually, there's actually no rules here. So just one thing, right? Let the questions be with you. We can have as many questions as you want. There's no dumb question. There is no good questions, no bad questions. Every question is a question, right? Let's keep this interactive. I'd love to just handle a lot of questions for you. And of course, questions are coming, right? So let's kick it off. So whenever somebody wants to talk of cloud computing, they'll just throw this photo at you, right? They'll just say, hey, you're expected to know everything in this photo. And and this is exactly what the session is not about. I love to keep it as non-technical as possible. Try to explain cloud to anybody, right? Even after the session, you want to maybe speak to your parents of, hey, what is this session all about? You spent your Sunday evening here. What did you learn? Just want to keep it as simple as possible. We'll have a lot of references in this entire presentation. And I think looking at this picture, don't get scared. What I feel is after this session, we will just go through this photo and really think of, hey, what is this? What is this? What is this? And I really hope this session can enable you. Okay, so for topics of discussion today, I will talk about how traditionally before the cloud, right, how IT infrastructure, how businesses were conducted. If let's say a company like Google, right, which boomed before all this cloud, all of this was very new. They boomed in a period where we didn't have any cloud. And let's think of how does a company, let's say from the 2000s to 2010, how did they do their business? I'll talk about why cloud computing is necessary. We'll just go through some cloud computing 101, some terms, some terminologies, and I love to just reference a lot of things here. I'll talk about some cloud providers, and we'll also go through some cloud platforms, and we can see, hey, all of these concepts I talk about, we can see them in action. And finally, this is, I think, most important to all of you. How can you be prepared for this cloud revolution, right? So with this, any questions here? I'd love to just have some breakers in between. I know I can't see anybody here, but just want some visual, some feedback. So do you have any questions for me before I start? So no. Sweet. So let's start. Everybody can hear me, right?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah. So let's get started. So traditional IT, right? So just to get started, let's think of a product, right? I am a programmer by heart, so I love to think of this. So let's say I am in this 2000 era, right? I just programmed something. I made a Tinder for programmers just to get everybody excited. Sunday, I designed a Tinder for programmers, right? Now, how does a company, or how do I make it available for a lot of users? So traditionally, in an IT world before the cloud, what I would do is I would have coded this entire application. I need to have all of these systems in place, right? I need to have a database. I need to have servers. I need to have a networking in place. I know some of you may have heard of version control like GitHub, all of that. And just for somebody who doesn't know what a database is, a database is just a place where you just store data, right? Nothing else. Doesn't have to be more complicated than that. We have backup systems in place. So if I made this Tinder for programmers, I need to get all of these. So what do I do next? I have to build my infrastructure, right? I need to purchase these servers. I have to send someone out from my office to go, hey, just buy me some servers, right? I want to host this website. You know this term, right? You may have heard of this term, host my website, right? So that is what I have to do. But then what are common pitfalls that may happen? Because I have these servers, I purchase these servers, right? I need to provide constant updates. These servers need patching. I need to make sure that they are secure. Let's say I host them in a building, right? Let's say in a data center like this, which looks typically like this, right? I have to think of the security. I have to make sure nobody just comes inside, just goes inside, does something. I need to maintain the hardware, and all of these servers require a lot of cooling. You can't just keep them in a house, right? You have to keep them in a controlled environment. You need to have sufficient lighting, sufficient electricity, all of that. So this is what traditional IT used to do, right? They used to go out to the market, just buy out all these servers and host their website. And just look at this man, right? You have to really have to lot of these common pitfalls that you can encounter when you do this in traditional IT world. Now, just to make you understand what is another common pitfall, right? I know this is a very painful memory, but let's not look at the score, right? Let's look at something else. Let's look here, right? The top right corner. Let's say I'm Hotstar and I'm looking at 1 crore people who are looking at this match at this exact same time. So what do I need to do if suddenly one day Hotstar, let's say in 2008, it would have never expected that in 2021, I would have 1 crore people watching a match together, right? And this is just on Hotstar. So what would I have to do, right? If my Tinder, which I designed, if just blew up, right? It became super famous. Everybody in SPIT is using it and all of that. So what would I have to do? I have to purchase more infrastructure to host all these users, right? Let's say I have 1 crore parallel users. What would I have to do? I have to buy a lot of these servers. But what about the next day of the match, right? Or just think of the match, right? We saw the first innings. We went through, I mean, let's say 10 overs of the next second innings, and everybody just shut down the match, right? So it really scaled from 1 crore to just a few thousand people watching the match, right? What would I have to do? I purchased all these servers. Now suddenly nobody's using them. Now what do? I rented out space. I bought all these servers. Suddenly nobody's using it, right? So scaling will be a very, very big problem if I was in a traditional IT world, right? You have to plan, really you have to plan for up scaling and users and all of that. So how did why, if I'm a Tinder, how would I solve this problem? So anybody up for this? Does anybody have any idea how would I solve this, right? I have all these servers and all of this scale. I have to secure my environment. So anybody with the answer? I can't. Anybody wants to speak out? What would be, I mean, what's the solution, right? I have all these things, all these common pitfalls. What would I do? I need to host my Tinder, right? Anybody with the answer?
Sir, we would rather use cloud here rather
Great.
than purchasing out things.
Hey, great. And who's that? I'm sorry, I cannot see a name.
Sir, Sanskar.
Hey, Sanskar, that's the right answer, right? That is where really the cloud comes in, right? So all of these problems, cloud computing is the answer, right? So what is cloud computing? If somebody asks you simply, right, after this session, your parents ask, hey, what is cloud computing? Cloud computing is really on-demand delivery of IT resources. Like I know a lot of you watch Netflix. What is Netflix, right? It is on demand. On demand saying, if I want it, if I need it, you have it, right? If I think of, hey, let's say I want to watch film, if I go to Netflix, I know it will have it, right? Similarly, cloud computing is just the on-demand delivery of IT resources. Now, IT resources really just mean servers, you can have computers, you can have networking, databases, all of this, right? So on-demand delivery. And what is another benefit of cloud? It is pay as you go pricing, right? How much ever you use, you only pay for that. You don't. So in the case of Hotstar, right, you purchase all these servers, but you don't use them. So what is happening is you have paid for that server, but you're not using it. But in cloud computing, you only pay for what you use. It is not like you have to provision. If you provision 10 servers, but only use one of them, you only pay for that one server, right? So just to reiterate, what is it? Simply put, cloud computing is really the delivery of computing services. So computing services can be servers, you can have storage, databases, all of these things, right? So with this, anybody has questions here? What is cloud computing? If I have to, if I want to ask you, hey, what is cloud computing? It's really the on-demand delivery, right? Anybody have questions here at this point? And sometimes I also think of this analogy, right? It is like renting versus owning a house, right? When you rent something, you really aren't. So let's say I right now live in an apartment, right? I rent this apartment. So what is the problem is if anything breaks in this apartment, I am not responsible. The what do you say? The association or the owner of this building will be responsible. So I'm just renting out the space, right? So really, cloud computing is just renting out IT infrastructure. Any questions at this point for anyone? Let the questions keep flowing. Sweet. So what's cloud, right? So on-demand delivery. So now I'll just talk briefly about Oracle Cloud Regions, right? So this is the cloud, right? This is Oracle Cloud. So I know if you already don't know, Oracle is one of our cloud providers, right? So what is a cloud provider? We just go into different parts of the world. We purchase data centers. We build data centers and we just make it available for users all around the world, right? So at this point, you can see all these regions, right? And all of these regions have a connection between them. So this is how on demand, right? If I am sitting in the United States, if you are sitting in India, you want to, let's say, spin up a compute machine, you want to do anything, you just go to the website, just let's say, hey, I want to provision this, it's provisioned for you. And you have the flexibility of choosing where you want to provision in this entire map of the world. So this is exactly what a cloud is, right? You will have all these connected data centers, which is available to you through a website, on-demand delivery. Anybody has questions at this point? Cloud regions, all of this. Great. So now I just talked about benefits. So I just talked about, hey, what is cloud computing? Now let's just touch briefly upon what the benefit of cloud, right, in IT. So cost, right? I don't have to buy out entire data centers for my company. I just have to rent it out. I just, whatever I need, I just go purchase how much ever I want, and I just pay for that. Next thing is speed, right? You want it, you have it. Now let's say if at this point I have an idea, I want to, hey, I want to just code out something, I want to make something available. Speed to production, right? You just have to need to have the application ready. It is very, very easy to host your application. Next, global scale, right? It has a global footprint, right? For companies of scale, right? Let's say we talk of Google, where it touches people all over the world. If I had just one data center, you know the latency, right? There is a concept called latency. If I just have a data center, let's say in the United States, and if somebody let's say in Australia wants to access this data, there'll be a lot of latency because the data has to really travel from here to there, right? So with cloud, you can have global footprints, right? Next, of course, we have performance. We have all these different shapes and all of that, which I'll touch upon. Security, right? We don't have to pay, you're not responsible for it. You just pay the cloud provider. The cloud provider is responsible for data center security, if there are security patches and all of that. And the other thing is reliability. You always know the cloud is going to be available. So just reiterating all of this, offsite data storage, you don't have to really purchase big places. You don't have to store all your data with you, right? You can be easily upgraded. There is a lower cost of ownership. It's always up. There is disaster assistance. There is no maintenance, IT costs, and all of that. So at this point, anybody has questions? Hey, what is cloud? How can it benefit me and all of that? Great. So let's move forward. So now we touch upon, hey, what's the component of a cloud, right? Whenever somebody tells, hey, cloud computing, right? You don't have to worry. So somebody will tell you, hey, it has blockchain, it has analytics, it has all of these things. Where do I start? You always. I hope everybody has a note just to make note. So components of cloud are only 5, right? Just 5 basic cloud components. You have identity management. What is identity management? You have a laptop, right? Every day in the morning before you start your laptop, you have to put in your password, you have to log in. So that is really what identity management is. When I show you the cloud platform, you'll understand that I need to provision out users, right? You sign up for an email, you get an email address, you get a password. That is exactly what identity management is. Next component is compute. Let's think of the servers, right? A server is just a computer. Let's think of the CPU of your desktop, right? Desktop computers. That's what compute is. You just have CPUs. So all of that is compute. Next, we have to store everything. So we have different types of storages. That's the third main basic foundational component. The fourth component will be a database. Database is just a place where you store data. And there's, of course, a very big distinction between a storage and a database, because database, the data in a database has to be stored in a particular manner, right? Data has to be of a certain format and all of that. So if somebody logs into Google Drive, right? Uh, Google Drive will be a storage, but it is not a database, because storage is where you just dump any and every file, right? But in a database, the data has to be in a particular format. It has to have a certain things, right? And the fifth main foundational component is networking. I hope every EXTC people here are excited that networking also is a very important component of the cloud. And it is, right? Security and all of that. So just 5 basic components, right? You don't have to know anything else. And if you just know these 5 components, you are good to go with any cloud platform. At this point, anybody has questions? Hey, what is identity management? Hey, you touched upon compute. What is compute? Anybody, any questions? Okay. So now with these 5 components in mind, let's read that first photo I showed you, right? This photo I showed you. Yeah, let's try to read this and let's understand how all these components really fit in such a complex photo, right? Where do things fall? I mean, how do I just put those concepts into picture, right? So you see these big blocks here, the big rectangles you see here. That is actually just, when you just read the header, it's a region, right? I showed you that global footprint. Showed you that global, where you have all these data centers. This is a data center, right? This region is really just a data center. Okay. So then I talked about identity management. What is identity management? Is where you have to give access to users, right? You see on this bottom left corner, internal users, they have some sort of thing. That is where identity management comes into picture. Generally, identity management is never represented in architecture diagrams like this, but just I mean basic part of the entire architecture. Second, I talked about compute, right? All of these you see here, all these things here in the middle part, all of these are compute. Third is storage. You have to store everything. So you see here, that's object storage. You see all of these things. So generally backups and all of that happen in a storage, right? Then the next component I talked about was database. You look here, it's a database, right? Database, and it's called a DB tier, right? Database tier. And the fifth component, of course, my favorite, of course, is networking. You see all of these load balancers, you see these fast connect, VPN, DNS, public internet, SSH, all of these are components of networking. And if I want to really reiterate what this diagram is, you see this HTTPS up here, epmmycompany.com, right? This is just an architecture diagram to how would you host this website on the cloud. This is really that architecture. So you have, so whenever you log in, let's say www.facebook.com, right? You don't see all of this, right? But everything here is on the back end, right? And this is how you would design a, let's say, cloud. How would you host this website? So this is exactly what this architecture diagram is about. So anybody have questions here? Anybody wants any clarifications? Hey, Vignesh, how would you do this? How would you do that? Any questions? Don't be a quiet bunch. Come on, let's talk, right? Questions, anybody? Great. I think I'm a really good teacher, I guess. No questions. Okay. So now after this, so at this point, what do we know, right? We know, hey, Vignesh, you just told me a cloud just has 5 components, right? The main foundational 5 components, which is identity. I just read it. Identity, compute, storage, database, networking. Sometimes whenever you log into a cloud, right, you'll have all these terms, and I'll try to relate cloud terms. So there are another set of terms which every cloud has, and I'll try to relate that to, let's say, this Boeing 747, right? And let's see, can we relate those concepts? So first thing, somebody in a cloud always talks of scalability. Hey, Vignesh, how would you scale this infrastructure? So in terms of this jetliner, right? What is scalability for a jetliner? I designed one of these engines, right? I designed one of these blue blocks here. What is scalability? I know how to design this. So I know how to design all the other 3, right? So what do I do? I design this, just keep on deploying all of this. So, a normal aircraft can just have 2, but somebody like this jumbo jet can have 4, right? That is scalability, right? I know how to design one. So hence I know how to design the other 3, other 4. That is scalability. So in terms of cloud, the second concept everybody talks about is resilience. What is fault tolerance, right? So when we talk about this plane, right? If one of the engine fails, let's say you are in the plane and just one engine fails, right? You may experience some jerk, but still the jumbo jet is going to be up the air, right? Because the other 3 will just take over, right? That is exactly what resilience or fault tolerance is in terms of the cloud, right? If any small thing breaks, you have to design so that the other things take care of those faults, right? The third is elasticity. Now, let's say I am at 30,000 feet. I put my plane on autopilot, right? Elasticity is I don't need to run all 4 engines. Because I'm on autopilot, everything is, a very smooth ride. I can just run on one engine. I can just run on 2 engines. but I will still have 4 whenever I need it, right? Let's say I want to take off, right? I need a maximum speed. That is when, let's say I want to use all 4. But when I'm in the air, I don't want to use all 4. I just want to use 1 or 2. That is elasticity, right? Elastic, right? When I want, I can stretch it out or I can stretch it in. That is elasticity in terms of the cloud. Fourth is fault handling, right? Again, right? What is fault handling? What is the difference between fault handling? What is fault tolerance? Fault handling is just if one engine fails, right? What would you do? At least the first thing I would like to know as a pilot would be, hey, this engine failed. So what would that be? So I'll have this entire monitor in front of me. The pilot would have a big cockpit there. They have everything there. So it would just show up there. Hey, one engine failed, right? That is fault handling. At least the first thing of fault handling is at least knowing, hey, that there is a fault, right? And then of course you'll have things to fix it and all of that. But fault handling is getting to know that, hey, this is a fault. And then finally is disaster recovery. In terms of cloud, let's say all 4 engines fail, right? What would you do? So all of these planes, they always have those life suits, they have oxygen masks, all of that. So all of that is part of disaster recovery. If everything breaks, how would you handle it? How would you make your website available and all of that? So these are really 5 core concepts of the cloud: scalability, resilience, elasticity, fault handling, and disaster recovery. Anybody has questions at this point? Just, I mean, cloud concepts.
Sir, what is the difference between fault tolerance and fault handling?
Okay, great. That's a good question, right? Fault tolerance is the ability of so I don't want to explain it in terms of let's say subjective things, right? Let's try to think it of I know last month or 2 months back when Facebook broke, right? Everything was offline, Facebook was offline, Instagram was offline, and all of that, right? So what would have occurred, right? What would have occurred? So first, a big component of the website would have failed, right? Fault tolerance. So the website, even though one of the main components failed, it would still have been up. That is fault tolerance, is the ability to recover from faults. So if I'm on a run, right? If I sprain my ankle, what is fault tolerance is I still have the power to somehow just manage to walk up to my home so that I can treat my leg, right? So that is fault tolerance. Fault handling, on the other hand, is let's think of an example, right? What is fault handling? Mm, so the first, I said fault handling in terms of the component, right? The first thing in fault handling always is knowing that there is a fault. What do you do? So as a company, when Facebook went down, what would have Facebook done, right? They would have sent some people down to their data center to maybe manually plug in their routers, restart, reshift, and all of that. That is fault handling. Is what do you do in the case something breaks? So if I sprain my ankle, what would I do? Is I try to put less pressure on my right leg, walk more on my left leg. Right? That is fault handling. Is what would you do in that scenario? Is that clear? Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions at this point? On scalability, elasticity, all of these terms, you're just throwing terms at me right now. Did that relation work? I mean, can you think of, hey, jumbo jet, right? So all of these concepts, are they getting related to the jumbo jet? Any questions at this point again? Okay, great. So this is done, right? These are some concepts. The other thing sometimes when people talk of the cloud is these, right? What are the types of cloud? They always talk of what is the type of clouds. Type of clouds are really just 3, right? Public cloud. Public cloud is where you and I, right? Normal people can log in and have access to the cloud. That is a public cloud where everybody can just log in and use the cloud, right? Second one is a private cloud. Private cloud, public cloud, what is the difference? A private cloud is generally reserved for some companies. If you are a government provider, right? If you are the government, You don't want normal people having access to the same servers as you, right? You don't want data to get mixed somewhere. You don't want people to have access. So if I'm in this room, right, I shut the door. I don't want people coming inside my room at this point. So that is what a private cloud is. If you have an apartment, you just lock one of the doors, right? You just reserve one for a provider or a company. That is private cloud. It is all still part of the same cloud environment, but it is completely reserved for one customer, one thing, or all of that. And the third is hybrid cloud. Sometimes what happens is sometimes in healthcare, what happens, healthcare, you'll have financial data and all of that. There are some regulations that require all your data to be stored with you. You don't want your data to be on the public cloud, right? Where I know sometimes security will mean still a concern, right? Even though it is secure and all of that, you still have a concern that, hey, my data should just remain with me, right? That is where you would deploy a hybrid strategy. You will have something with you and you have something with the cloud. So that's hybrid cloud, just a combination of public and private, right? And sometimes private cloud can also be called, if you're not hosting that entire cloud environment on the public cloud, and you just have everything with you, right? Traditional IT was exact example of private cloud, where you just buy servers and everything and keep it with you. That is private cloud. So all these concepts clear? Anybody has clarifications, questions? 3 types of cloud.
So there is a question in the comment box for you. It is
Okay.
serverless cloud computing possible?
Okay.
What can be advantages?
Okay, great. That's a very, very good question. I'm sorry, I cannot read the chat. I just see this presentation. That's a good question. Yes, serverless cloud computing is very, very much possible. What is the advantage is you're not reliant on the infrastructure, right? You don't have to worry about, hey, where do I deploy this? And I think most of this will be clear when I show you the cloud platform. But serverless in its base thing is your application isn't hosted on a server. It is just some very small task. So let's say I want to switch on the light, right? I do it in so Python code and all of that sometimes can be part of serverless functions. But I think this question can be answered. I will answer this question when I show you the cloud platform and really touch upon the advantages and all of that. Advantage serverless computing has is hardware failure isn't a problem for you when you don't have to scale to a lot of people and you just have a very small application. You can really use serverless functions there. Great question. Anybody else? Questions, clarifications, public, private, hybrid? I know I just threw a lot of concepts at you. All of that clear? Okay, great. Fantastic. This is, don't get scared again, right, by the photo. You really have to just focus on the top, right? This was traditional IT. You have something called as IaaS, PaaS, SaaS as a service, right? As a service is really, when you think of Uber, right? What is Uber? Uber is just cabs as a service, which is available to you. Swiggy, you may have heard of Swiggy. What is Swiggy? It is food delivery as a service. So infrastructure as a service is really servers is available to you. So if I open my phone, go to the app, it is available for me. So in a traditional IT environment, all of these stacks, right? Networking, storage, server, OS, middleware, data, applications have to be managed by you. But if you go to an IaaS provider, cloud provider, there are companies which do only one thing, and there are companies which do all of these three things, right? When I talk of cloud providers, you would see most of public cloud providers would be all three. But there are companies which do only infrastructure as a service. So these companies would just give you the networking, storage, servers, but they will not give you any of this, right? They will not give you the OS, they will not give you middleware, nothing. So this is infra. Hey, anybody has a question? I think I can hear someone. Okay, great. So infrastructure as a service is really just infrastructure getting available to you. All of these things would be done by somebody else, but you have to really manage all of this, right? When you have platform as a service, right? Platform you would get, and this is a build up, right? IaaS is the smallest, PaaS is one level up, SaaS is the top, right? And you have to think is whenever you get a SaaS, you get everything below it. So when you get PaaS, you're going to get this plus the IaaS. So it is just a increment of how I would like to think is. So difference between infrastructure and platform. In platform as a service, you have the OS, you have runtime environments. You whenever you want to start coding, what do? You do pip install Python, you do pip install something. That is all the runtime environment, right? You're creating runtime environments so that you can create applications on top of that. So platform as a service, you would get everything here, and you have to still code your applications. You have to still manage all of your data. And when you talk of SaaS, right, you get all of that. So Instagram, Facebook, these are all SaaS companies. So you get a software on your phone, right? You download the software, you can use the software. But really, that is what SaaS is. When you talk of platform as a service, you still have to write your platforms and all of that. So everybody clear on this? IaaS, PaaS, SaaS as a service. Uber is just cabs as a service and all of that. And this was traditional IT, right? You see benefits of cloud. If I just want to write an application, I just have to write my application and I can get just everything below it. But in a traditional IT, I would have to buy this, I have to buy this, I have to buy this, all of this, and then get to my application. So questions at this point? Clear? XaaS, PaaS, and all of that. And when I talk of cloud providers, like on the next slide, I will tell you, hey, this is an infrastructure company, this is a SaaS company, and all of that.
So there is a question again in the comment box. It
Okay.
says, could you give some examples of each of these EAS, so that
Okay.
we can get more clarity about it?
Okay. Examples, right? SaaS. Best example would be any app you download on your phone, right? That is software as a service. As a service is just let's say what I'll think of examples, but as a service is just any app you just download on your phone. That is SaaS, right? In terms of IT, right? Oracle is a big. I don't know if everybody would have heard of that. ERP, enterprise resource management. All of these are SaaS products. You would have Tally. I mean, a lot of your parents would be using all of this. So these are all software as a service. So you just get available the software. You don't have to worry about anything else. Platform as a service examples, right? There is a company called Salesforce. That is a platform as a service company where you get all of these things below, but you have to code your applications and data. So platform as a service, let's think of anywhere you have to go physically write the code, you have to physically manage your data. These are platform as a service companies. I'll think of more examples, but can't think of it right now. Infrastructure as a service is you get all of this, right? Let's think of an example. Infrastructure as a service. I can't think of examples of companies of IaaS, but you just get server storage, networking. So a server room, right? I don't know if everybody have been to the third floor SPIT. Just opposite the SCETRX, right? You would see big storage servers inside there. And if I was a company who would provide all of that two things, that would be an IaaS company. I hope I answered that question in some way. But when I talk of providers, right, I think it may be clear.
A question from Kubar.
Okay.
Microsoft Office 365
Mm-hmm.
is an example of which type of cloud service model?
It would be a software as a service, right? Let's think of 365. Let's say you do Excel, right? In an Excel, you get the software, but you have to just do what you want to do, right? You want to do a sum of everything. That is what you do. You don't have to code anything inside there, right? You don't have to code, hey, I have to code Excel. You don't have to do that. So software is getting available to you for you to work, right? So Google Docs, all of these examples, like Google Docs, Gmail, all of these are software as a service. You don't have to do, I mean, you don't have to configure the software in any way. You get the software for you. You just have to do your work there. So Office 365, Microsoft products would be a great example of a SaaS things, the rightmost. SaaS. And
Um,
nowadays, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, no problem.
No, I'm saying nowadays every company is sometimes, so there's a new term, right? XaaS, right? So people just put in terms nowadays. You have cabs as a service, platform as a SaaS. You'll have sometimes lights as a service. So Google Home and all of that. Sometimes lights as a, everything can be as a service nowadays.
A question by Mihir Reddy. Which
Okay.
of these do you think is better?
Um, there is nothing better or better or not better in this thing. It just depends on, you are a company, right? You let's say we just think of entrepreneurial things, right? You are a company, you're starting out. So sometimes you would be a software company where you write code and all of that. But sometimes you are a company which provides platforms for other people to code. So I don't know if everybody would have heard. So I would show you an example. So I'll just keep that in mind. As a platform, right? We'll show that. So there is no this is better or that is better. All of these things would suit your applications. But one thing which is better is, I know all of these three things on the right is still better than on-prem, right? You don't have to manage all of this in these things. You just have to manage a very small portion depending upon your use case. A great question again. So with this knowledge, right? So we'll just briefly go over, hey, what are some cloud providers nowadays, right? So this is a very small set, but there are a lot of cloud companies today, right? Adobe, I think everybody would be using Adobe PDF Reader. So these are still, so these are main cloud. I will also give you an example of why every company is a cloud company nowadays, but everybody is not a cloud provider. So there's a very, very nuanced difference between the two. I will go over that. But nowadays, cloud providers, these are the big players, right? You have Microsoft Azure, you have AWS, Amazon Web Services, you have Google Cloud Platform, you have Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. That's where I just do my bread and butter, right? This is Alibaba Cloud. Alibaba Cloud, you have IBM Cloud, you have Salesforce. Salesforce essentially isn't a cloud provider, but it's a cloud company, right? I just talked about platform as a service. Salesforce is a very, very good example of a platform as a service company. So these are major big cloud providers today. So, hey, and somebody would ask me, hey, Vignesh, I know every company today is a cloud company, but why isn't every company a cloud provider, right? So what's a provider? A cloud provider would be a company which gives you a public cloud for access, right? Uh, so, so I'll give you the example of Adobe PDF, right? Our PDF reader. You just get the product, but you don't get access to the Adobe cloud essentially. You can just access the software, but you can't access the cloud as a whole. But all of these cloud providers, they give you a platform. They give you a public cloud. That's what I think of things. What is a cloud provider? A cloud provider is a company which offers you a public cloud environment for anybody to access. Now, companies like, I don't know if everybody would have heard of Dropbox. A company, Dropbox, is just very similar to, it's just cloud storage company. You just get access to you can just store things inside there, but you essentially don't have access to the Dropbox cloud as a whole. Although the entire product may be still hosted on a cloud, but you don't have access to the cloud essentially. So that's a cloud. I mean, that's an example of a cloud company, which is not a cloud provider. So any questions here? You guys have some examples of your own. We can talk, right? If somebody wants to go ahead.
Yeah, I have a doubt.
Okay.
Do the big companies like Facebook, do they use storage
Mhm.
warehouses or they rely on cloud storage as their storage?
Okay, you talked about a warehouse, right? When I talk of Facebook, right? Facebook would have to use a lot of databases. Of course, it would have to use storage. It would also have to use data warehouse, right? For everybody who doesn't know what the data warehouse, let's think of a database, right? It is just an evolution of a database. Is you have all your data in one place and you can run analytics jobs on top of that. That's what a data warehouse is. But what's a database is just you can query data. You can't do analytics and all of that. You have to query the data out and then do the analytics. So for a company like Facebook, it would have to have all of these things, right? It is because of such a huge scale. You need to have storage, you need to have database, you need to have data warehouse and everything. So, and everything will serve a specific purpose. So why would Facebook use data warehouse to run analytics? It has to see, hey, how many new users signed in today? That's a great use case for data warehouse. Where would you use storage? Is you, I mean, you see all these posts, right? All of those photos have to be stored somewhere. So generally, that would be where storage would play a big role there. And of course, it would use database, right? I mean, go into your Facebook profile, you can see all your posts from, I mean, from the time you created a Facebook profile, right? All of that data has to lie inside a database so that you can query that data. But you don't essentially have to run analytics on top of those data. So good question. I hope I answered that question. Anybody has any more examples of companies you can think? Hey, Vignesh, how does this company work? You may have heard of some companies. This is a very good time to, I can maybe dissect, hey, what this company does, how would they use the cloud and all of that.
AWS is an example of IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS.
So, okay, good question again. What is AWS? What is Azure, GCP, OCI? All of these, all these companies are all three, right? You can get, so these companies, so public cloud providers would be companies which provide all the three. They provide IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, all the three. And you can pick and choose which one you want. So when I show you the platform in just a minute, you will see that you can pick and choose. Hey, I want an IaaS. Hey, I want a PaaS. I want a SaaS. So these companies here, I mean the 6 or 7 companies I show here. So these offer all the three services, IP and SaaS, all the three.
Thank you.
Mhm. Another example, if somebody wants to think, hey, what is Apple, right? What is Apple? Is Apple a cloud provider? What is it, right? Apple generally isn't a cloud provider. It is, how do I say? Apple provides software as a service, right, to their phones, right? So Apple would be a good case of SaaS. But it is also a PaaS company. But you don't get access to the Apple cloud, but you have environments, right? Swift. I mean, you can code in iOS, right? All these applications. That would be a classic example of PaaS. But they wouldn't have to worry about IaaS. So they would have just gone to some company. They would say, hey, I need some servers, I need some networking. You take this money, just give me those servers so that I can build my platform, build my applications. But I don't have to think of the infrastructure. Apple would be a great case of SaaS and PaaS company. It wouldn't be an IaaS. Any other companies you want to maybe talk about? Some companies which come to placements and all that.
Yeah, I want to ask about Oracle. So
Okay.
we have heard of Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, etc.
Hmm.
In cloud because we do web development projects, etc. So we are very much heard of them. So how Oracle provide these services, or how Oracle analyzes the data it stores. So that's my question.
Oh, good question, right? So I know it's so Oracle Cloud isn't that famous as, hey, let's say, hey, AWS and all of that, but OCI is again OCI, right? Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. That's what it's called. It's exactly like what AWS is, right? So in AWS, you go to the platform. I know you just said web development and all of that. You can do all of that in OCI too, and you can do all of that in any of these clouds, right? So Oracle can provide you a public cloud. So what does Oracle also do? Oracle has been a king of databases. Everybody would have heard of Java. Java is always again owned by Oracle. You have all these enterprise grade software. I mean, a lot of your parents, right, who work in the industry, they would have interacted with some sort of Oracle product, right? HR services, you have Tally, ERP. So that's what Oracle does, right? It's a SaaS provider generally. So you have software which it provides, and it also provides a public cloud to people. And how does it analyze data, right? That's also a very interesting question. Hmm, how does it analyze data? So generally, data for it would be, hey, how many people use my cloud today? What is my revenue and all of that? But generally, analytics as a thing would be built into all of these providers, right? So you can do. I'll show you in a minute, right? When I show you the platform, I think it can be very clear for you. It's a good question again.
Yeah, it answered my question.
I'll show you the platform. I think very, very, very clear. Any other questions? It's a good discussion, right?
No, not from me as
Okay.
of now.
Okay, great, great. So now, of course, so I think everybody would be waiting for this platform, right? Cloud platform. So let's do some drum rolls. So I'll just show you the cloud platform. I think this is a good time to just check the chat. I mean, and just never saw the chat, right? Uh, yeah, which do you think is better among them? Yeah, there's actually nothing better. It is just depends on your use case, right? Hey, what do you want to do and all that. So, okay, everybody would be waiting for this. I am right now going to be showing you, hey, what is OCI, right? What's a cloud platform essentially look like? So I go here. So I showed you, right? Identity management is a very, very big part of all of that. So I'll just put in something here. So right now what you see is identity management at its work, right? First component I showed you. So as a service, right? All of these IaaS, PaaS, everything is available. But for me to interact with it, I just have this website. So that is exactly what a cloud platform is, on demand. So this is how a typical, I mean, I'll show you AWS too, but this is how typically a cloud platform looks like, right? You see all these, hey, get started with this, launch resources. I mean, you don't have to know anything. So, but I mean, I talked about 5 basic components you should know. So there are here, right? Compute, storage, networking, identity, and what else? Storage, right? What's the fifth one? Compute, storage, networking, database, right? Database. You don't need to know any other thing, right? Even if you don't know any other thing, you are good to go with just the 5, right? So what's the benefit of cloud, right? So today I am sitting here. I want to launch some instance to maybe do some production, right? I go into compute, I go into instances. Okay. So I choose this. I say, hey, create an instance, right? So I choose this. So now I can choose, hey, where do I want to launch this instance? You see PHX just stands for Phoenix. So, see this region? Yeah, manage regions. Good time to see all this. So this is my home region, US West. I can, I mean, really just go launch instances anywhere in the world, right? France, Germany, Canada, Brazil, and you can have more, right? India. This is, so generally you would see on the top, right? Hey, which region are you working in? And you know that photo I showed you, this one, the main thing, right? This is the first main thing which you need to know. Hey, which region are you working in? So that is exactly what this does, right? Hey, what is the region? Next to go in, so all of these services would be inside here. So right now what I'm going to do is I go into instances. I just say, hey, create an instance, right? Create an instance is generally just like, hey, I want a laptop. It's just as simply, hey, I want a laptop, right? I go here, I just select something here, and I select the thing I want to. So image, right? I can do change image, platform image. So this is a platform, right? Essentially a platform is I'm getting the environment for me, but I can do anything inside that, right? I can do CentOS, Ubuntu, Linux, Windows, all of that, right? So right now, let's say we do Ubuntu. Select this image, right? We want to run an Ubuntu server. The shape, right? I just, what is the shape you would ask, right? Shape is just, whenever you purchase a laptop, you say, hey, I want an 8 TB laptop, I want a 12 TB laptop. That is what shape would govern. Hey, how big of a instance do you want? I go here. So see, all of these components in work, right? You select the shape. Next, you have to select networking. Hey, which network do you want to deploy this thing, right? Then there is some SSH key, right? If you want to SSH into the instance and all of that. Of course, I'm not going to do all that, but generally all of that is here. The boot volume, all of that. Let's see advanced options. You can do some management. So why would management be important? I talked about fault handling, fault tolerance. That is where management really helps you, right? You need to know, hey, something breaks, something doesn't break, and all of that. So now let's just create, right? Let me just create the instance. See the power, right? So let's say we were in the 2000s. I want to do something. I would have to send someone to the market. I would say, hey, just buy this instance for me. I need to do some testing. I want to do this. But look at today, right? Best time to be alive, I would think. I'm just provisioning some instance, right? On the fly when I want it. So it's made it so easy, right? So I go to instances, just wait for it to just provisioning, right? Really, right? Less than 2 minutes. It just takes some time, right? Cool, running, right? So you see the power of cloud. I want to do something, I have it available, right? I just thought of an idea. Let's say I just thought of something. Hey, I want to do this. I have it available running right now. This is the power of cloud. And really, you just need to know, as I talked about, right? Components. You just need to know some things, right? Compute, storage, and all of that. So you can stop an instance, you can start an instance. You only get charged as a whole for what you use, right? So right now it is running, but it is under always free. Always free is just a tier of pricing, right? Always free is a concept of pricing. I'll say, hey, this instance, because of the shape and the image I chose, it is free tier, or it's always free. It's just that I don't have to pay for this instance. If I stop this instance, I'll just force stop. So just stopped it, right? I provision when I want, I stop it when I want, right? And you thought of those, I showed you that painful image of India versus Pakistan. So when 1 crore users were viewing the match, you would have maximum amount of instances running. But when it scaled down, right, suddenly to maybe 2 people watching the match, all of those extra instances would have just shut down. And Hotstar would have just have to paid for the instances which are running. See, just stopped, right? Done. I don't have to worry about it. I will not get charged anything here. So this is how a typical cloud platform looks. Anybody has questions here while we are inside a cloud platform? If I go, let's say, what other things we have, right? We have some developer services. We have database tools, API management. Hey, Vignesh, I don't know what all this. You don't have to know anything. You don't have to know everything and anything, right? You just have to know, hey, I have all these main components, and every cloud provider would give you all these services. And somebody talked about, hey, what's PaaS, what's IaaS? So right now what I did, right, in the compute, that would be a thing called IaaS, because I provisioned the infrastructure. Now platform, I would go, so if I don't know if everybody would have heard of this, but containers, Kubernetes, all of these things would be great platform as a service tools. And SaaS, right? Do I have any SaaS things here? Let's see. I think I saw digital assistant. Where's digital assistant? Okay, I didn't see it. The basis. So generally all of these things, analytics, AI, generally would be SaaS things which you can do. Data lake, machine learning, data science, all of this. I think I saw, wait, let me, and whenever you can't find something, you can always do this, just search here, right? Digital assistant. So digital assistant would be a SaaS thing which I can do. So I just create an instance and it can be running. So this is what the OCI or Oracle Cloud looks like. Generally, you can see, hey, key terminologies and all that. And you'll have launch resources, upgrade. You can see user management. I go into my profile. So I can see, hey, so identity services, as I said, would be, hey, this is my OCID, multi-factor is, so this is my email address. So it got provisioned based on my email address, right? All of this. This would be great example of identity services. So anybody questions at this point? OCI, hey, Vignesh, what is Oracle Cloud? This is how any typical cloud platform. So once we so we have seen this. Now let's look at AWS and hey, what is the difference, right? So this is the AWS console. Okay, let me let's type this. I hope I get it right. This is how the AWS cloud looks like, right? So as I said, the main thing, right? The region I'm working. So see on the top, you should see the region, right? Hey, I have all these regions I have available. I have to select which region I want to be working. And then I go into services. Actually, I think, yeah, services, right? Same thing, exactly same thing, but just you have all these extra things, right? AR, VR, you have something called blockchain, containers. But again, always tie back to the 5 basic components I talked about. Database, compute, uh, let's see, security, identity, storage, and there has to be networking somewhere. Networking, content delivery. Exactly the same thing. So I think I can see, where do I see that? All services, yeah. It's a good place to see all this. So you see all these things, Amazon Bracket, and you see Grafana, Proton, all of these things would be great example. Chatbot, all of these would be great examples of SaaS things, where you have the software available, you just have to work with it. So any questions at this point, everybody? So is it the first time everybody looking at AWS and looking at cloud platform? How many of you looking at the cloud platform for the first time? So I hope this looks good for you. Yeah, this is how any general cloud platform looks like. They all have the same things. Services would be different. And AWS has been in the business, I mean, the longest time, and hence you see all these extra services. That is how AWS has a lot of services available. Your media services, your front end, web and mobile. Somebody talked of serverless, right? So Amazon, what's it called? Amazon here, serverless application, something. Yeah, so here I just upload my server, right? A serverless, right? I don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure in the case where serverless. Serverless just means you don't have a computer, you just are running the code. Simply put, you're just running the code. You're not worrying about what is lying underneath. Any questions at this point? Any chat? Let me. Monitoring chat. Great. I think everybody clear with, hey, what's cloud? If anybody wants you, I mean, your parents ask you after this presentation that, hey, what is cloud? I don't know what's a cloud. You should be able to explain, right? On-demand delivery. It's like Netflix for IT, right? For companies. So I think this just brings me to the last part. Hey, Vignesh, how do I mean, prepare for the cloud revolution, right? So I think the main thing would be certifications, licenses would be your friend, right? This is my LinkedIn, and because the cloud revolution, right? You see this new licenses certificate. This thing wasn't there. I mean, 5, 6 years ago, right? So all of this, so getting certified in a certain cloud adds that bracket for all of you, right? Ki, hey, I know the cloud, I know this, I know that. So for me, right, I did AWS first, and because I know my foundations very basic, right? I know every cloud platform will have those five basic components. It is very easy to crack other clouds. So for you to get started, a good place for you. So anyone who wants to get started with a cloud, right? You just go to documentation. So what I do is I see, hey, OCI documentation, right? So there, what would happen is you get to this page, or I mean this page, and you see all these services, and you have to sit and read about them. Hey, what is compute? I don't know what is compute, right? So I just go inside there, say get started, create your first Linux instance. And every cloud provider would have a comprehensive guide for documentation. So that is how you get prepared. You need to read through a lot of things. You need to know, hey, I want to know, hey, how do we launch an instance, right? This is how you get it. Same thing for AWS, right? You go into AWS documentation, you can read about every service of AWS. And for certifications, another cool thing that Oracle is offering right now is free OCI training plus free certifications through December 31st. So you saw all these, right? You don't have to pay anything right now until December 31st. So that's cool, right? You just go inside here. Let's say, hey, I want to get foundation, right? Most of you would start with foundations. And you say, hey, what is foundations? Free tier. So they also give you a free tier account. So all of that is available. So certifications are your friend. If you want to get, I mean, you want to place yourself as, hey, I know the cloud, right? So, hey, what proof do you have? You know the cloud. So certifications are a great proof for you. So at this point, I think this is everything I had. I hope I was a good presenter. I know we are almost over time, but yes, any questions, any last questions? Anybody wants to ask something? Everybody understood everything I told? I mean, do you understand something? Hey, what is cloud computing? Can you explain in 5 words or something?
Yeah, I just have a last question.
Okay.
You took a case study of Facebook, right? Once it failed to handle people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just few months ago. So
Mm-hmm.
why that happened? Because Facebook was serving that much amount of users before that moment also. Then
Mm-hmm.
why that happened at that instance itself?
Yeah, from something I know, it was something a BGP issue, right? A border gateway issue. That is what I know. Is somebody wanted to change some configuration there? They by mistake dropped all the tables from their BGP router. So you have a router. So somebody just accidentally deleted all of their routes inside that router, right? And so everything just crashed. So that's what I know of what happened there. And a good fix, I think somebody would have gone to the data center, would have seen, hey, can I get some backup of that router data and just upload it back? And that's what all the time took, right? 2 hours, 3 hours without Facebook.
Yeah, yeah, I got it.
It was a border gateway, yeah, BGP issue. Any other questions? So most of you on this call are everybody from EXTC, or we have a couple of branches. So I think you can just put it out on the chat if I just read. Everybody from EXTC, everybody, different things, IT, comms. You can just maybe type on the chat. I just want to know, hey, oh, IT. Oh, ETRX2. Great. EXTC, where is EXTC? Somebody EXTC. Hey. Great, great. This has been great, right? Thank you for the session. Hey, Shreya, thanks for reaching out. I hope I was a good host. Anybody has questions, hey, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to connect with everybody. If you need help in anything, just let me know. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much for the session.
That was indeed a wonderful session with you, Mr. Vignesh. And we definitely learned a lot about cloud computing in a much easier and comprehensive way. The way you covered each aspect, I think that made it, much more fruitful and understandable for us in that easy language that you talk to us with.
Thank you.
We at IIT SPIT thank you for taking time out and spending your Sunday evening with us for this wonderful and great talk. Thank you
Thank you.
very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good Sunday, everybody. Rest remaining Sunday. And go explain to your parents, right? Hey, what is cloud computing? What did you learn? Simple terms, right? You don't have to complicate anything. Hey, Jumbo.